guys, welcome to another monthly AutoLeap's webinar. This one is a little bit different. I'm going to share my screen. A little bit different, where we normally bring in one expert at a time. Obviously, you can see that we have 3 industry experts with me today. Before I get started, I do want to go over just our normal housekeeping. This session is going to be recorded. It is recording right now. So you will get the recording most likely tomorrow, including the slides and the industry report that we're going to be reviewing today on this call. If you haven't already seen it, you can also go to the AutoLeap resources page and look for the state of the auto repair industry report that we're discussing today. Before I pass it over to our panelists that we have, I just want to kind of set the scene of this report. So AutoLeap went out and surveyed nearly 300 shop owners. We actually hired a third-party surveying company to take us out of the equation to make the results more real, so that nobody would realize or think that AutoLeap was skewing any of this. Majority of those were not AutoLeap customers. So again, just setting the scene. And those that were doing respondents are shop owners, general managers across the US and Canada. The vast majority, again, were non-AutoLeap customers. The survey respondents were asked about the industry's most relevant topics, from their own shop profiles and financials to their industry outlooks. We did, of course, weigh in a little bit on COVID. So we'll touch on it a little bit, but we're going to kind of bypass that topic since COVID is out the window. And then we talk about staffing strategies and much more. So before I get into the nitty gritty, I am going to first pass it off to Diane Freeman. Diane is the president at the Automotive Aftermarket Retailers of Ontario, or ARO, as their acronym stands. Diane, welcome. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you, Amber. Yes, we're an association based here in Canada, and we're the leading advocates for the independent automotive professionals. So those who are repairing vehicles on our roadways. And we address industry challenges. We do training for our members. We offer many benefits to them, as well as keeping them abreast of important regulations within government that they need to know.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Obviously, I did ladies first there, gentlemen. Sorry about that. I went out of order of my slide. Cecil is the CEO of the Institute for Automotive Business Excellence. Cecil, I would love for you to introduce yourself a little bit further.
As Amber said, I'm Cecil Bullard. Been doing this about 23, 24 years now as a coach and a consultant. Have been a tech, a service advisor, manager, owned shops, and I probably have worked with over 1,000 shops in my career and continue to help shops to improve their business.
Awesome. Thank you. We're so glad to have you, Cecil. And Chris Cotton is the owner of AutoFix Auto Shop Coaching. Chris, so glad to have you. Welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me, Amber. Really excited to be on here with Diane and Cecil. I've done things with Cecil before, but never Diane. And I think we're all going to be at Apex and SEMA next week. So if anybody out there is going to be there, stop by and look us up. We'll, if everybody else's schedule's like mine, we're going to be zipping and zapping all along. So be an interesting week next week. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, we're so glad to have you guys. So again, we took this survey. It took some time, obviously, to collect the data, analyze the data. And so the report compiles these findings into key takeaways. We are going to section this to some of those key takeaways. We did have about 11 experts weigh in on the data that we found, basically just provided their thoughts on the report's data, key insights, and things like that. So with the report that we'll be sharing afterwards, you'll find their featured reactions throughout. So without further ado, I'm going to go into retirement plans. So obviously 64% of the repair shop owners expected to retire over the next 10 years. Not going to read into all of that. Everybody sees this. And I did forget to mention, I'm sorry, guys. We want to make this as interactive as possible. So through the chat functions, if you have any questions, anything that we discussed strikes thought, an opinion, you feel like it's not accurate, we want to hear back from you. We would love to have the conversation. Obviously, you're not on camera or you're muted, but I will be doing my best to kind of feed those through to our panelists today. So based on retirement plans, I'm going to open this up to the group that we have here. How will the approaching retirements of most shops impact the auto repair industry as a whole?
I think we're in trouble. And the reason that I think we're in trouble is because 15% of these shops look like they're going to close. They don't have a plan to move forward. And so I think the fact that there's so many shop owners ready to retire in the next 10 years, and there's a gap from your survey, this one or the other one you guys did, in the middle where there's not as many people in our industry in the 35 to 55 range. And so I think we're going to see a real a drop in shops. Combine that with the cost of education and the need for education and tools, and there are going to be quite a few shops probably that don't exist in the future if they don't make some changes today.
Yeah.
Along those same lines, kind of what I'm seeing and what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling is, one, I'm surprised that 48% of them plan to pass it down to family. I think that number's up from what I remember, if I'm thinking 5-10 years ago. But if we talk about this shrinking of bays, it almost reminds me of the ag industry, right? Like if we don't have people to pass these businesses along to or sell them out, big corporate entities are going to come in and buy these shops up, or the 3-bay, 4-bay, 5-bay shops are going to get completely bulldozed and turned into car washes. And you're going to have 20-bay superstores that are owned by, could even be dealerships. And they're just throwing a flag under a private band or independent band or brand, I should say, and going from there. So it's definitely disconcerting.
You already see a consolidation with the private equity companies coming in and buying up shops. Phoenix, in that area, I think they bought 175 shops last year. One of the groups, the same group that owns Midas, and so I think we're going to have the same kind of thing that happened to the auto body industry over the last 15 years, happening in the service and repair industry. And it's almost scary because now in auto body, most mom and pop shops are gone, and there aren't that many left.
We're definitely starting to see a decline in the number of shops with the baby boomers starting to retire. And like you said, Chris, that number, 48%, passing it down to a family seems really high. I know that a lot of our members are definitely trying to find an employee who may be interested in taking over the business and doing that. But I find most of the shop owners aren't planning for the retirement soon enough. They're leaving it till, I believe, the last minute to make the plans on how they're going to do the retirement. And it should be a couple of years prior to the retirement date that they set, so they can decide what direction they want to go in. And if there is someone within the business who can take over and purchase the operation.
Yeah. And I think too, I do want to go back to what Cecil was saying. Thank you for those points, but the investor side of this, right? So the people that are wanting to retire, what does that look for, like big investors coming in and taking these shops? What do you think that's going to do for the industry? We
have a lot of shops. I hope my vocals are louder now.
Yeah.
We have a lot of shops that are buying their 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th shop because there's a difference in the multiplier at the end. And so we have a lot of shop owners right now that are expanding their businesses with the idea that private equity in 5 years, 7 years, 10 years is going to come in and buy at a higher rate, actually. And then we also work with a couple of different private equity companies to kind of talk about this conversation of what are they looking for. And they're not looking for the mom and pop shop that has low margin and doesn't run well. They're really looking for an organization where the owner is not necessary and the organization, runs more like a franchise model than a mom and pop shop. And I want to talk just a little bit about what Diane said. You need 5 to 7 years to plan and create your exit strategy to do it correctly. And unfortunately, many of this 48% have not really planned their exit strategy. And it can be the difference of several $100,000 or even $1 million in additional, with tax planning and other things. So if you haven't planned it and you're going to get out 7 years from now, 5 years from now, you need to do it now and get it done.
Well, and unfortunately, a lot of those people that want to sell are like, okay, I'm done with this place. I got to get rid of it. And that's how they contact me and people like you, like, okay, I'm ready to get out of my business now. And I'm like, oh, okay, when did you start? And they're like, yesterday. I'm like, yeah, there's no way at all.
And so there's this, there are shops on the market right now where you can come in that are poorly ran and buy it for 10, 20 cents on the dollar.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And you're not really buying it for 10 or 20 cents on the dollar. You're buying it for what it values at. Unfortunately, it doesn't value it much because the margins aren't there. The systems and processes aren't there. The things that make the shop create value, for someone else, it doesn't exist. And so at the end, we have a lot of guys that are just looking at it and going, I'm just getting out. I mean, I've got, I've saved a little bit of money. I've got my Social Security check and I'm going to get out. And I got to, it's shameful almost that we're not generating more wealth for owners in these shops.
Well, I think that goes to that 15% of the people that you're talking about that are just, and if I remember correctly, your survey was there was like 15 to 18% of the people that were just going to lock their doors and walk away. And so you've got people that are tired of it. They're fed up with it. They're locking the doors. Those places are getting leveled and turned into other businesses. And here's the other thing is it's going to be hard to replace all these bays because I've got people that are in industrial areas or they're looking to put a new shop in, and there are towns that are like, nope, no more repair shops in this area, no more repair shops in this area, or you have to go in an industrial complex with 30 other repair shops. It's getting harder to put in a bays, and we have if you just look individually, like I'm sure Salt Lake City's the same way, but if you look at Denver, you've got all these people moving in, bays disappearing, and then so your car count per bay is going up and up and up. And this is why people are booked out so long, because the bays are disappearing.
Mm.
And you would think supply and demand would come in here where prices would go up because there's so much more of a demand. And yet
That's not happening. Yeah.
As part of the industry, we're looking at it. What I don't remember from the last survey is $120 average around the country.
Right.
And it should be $220. I mean, even if you just take the increase in inflation that's going on, along with the fact that the industry has been undervalued for years, and the fact that you've got shops that are booked out 3-4 weeks, you would think prices would be going up, but they're really not as an industry. There are some individual shops, but not as an industry.
And then you throw in staffing issues. So it all just is a beautiful storm of things, right? I was going to ask you, and then we'll go to our next point. I really appreciate all that feedback because I think it's really insightful. I do want to also ask the audience, are you one of those 48 that are looking to retire? And if you are, do you have a plan in place for your retirement? So just something to engage with. I would love to see that. And then my next question is, and I know we don't really want to too much touch on COVID, but since COVID, do you feel like more and more people are wanting to close their doors? I mean, I'm just using that as a point in time, or do you think this is just cyclical, as most things are, and we're just coming to that point?
This is a storm that's been gathering for a long time, and I don't think COVID helped it, but I don't know that COVID hurt it or created more, because COVID was really, in many cases for the automotive industry, a short-term problem. The first couple of months, a lot of shops slowed down, but after that, they picked up, and now shops are doing, they're having a 20, 30, 40% increase in their business.
Yeah.
And so I think COVID had little to do with it. I think this is something that's been coming on for, I don't know, 40 years, frankly.
Yeah.
I
I mean by cyclical, right? Like it comes and goes like any economy.
one of the things that I wonder about is, let's face it, we got the idle loans, we got PPP loans, and it propped a lot of bad operators up. And what I feel like is some of those bad operators were still bad operators, and they got the money, and we're going to start seeing that note come due here pretty soon. And next month. And my guess is a lot of those people are going to continue the trend of shutting down. They're like, hey, I got the money, I stashed that away, I was able to keep open for another 2 years, and boom, now I'm going to get out and disappear from Uncle Sam. So I don't know.
It's amazing how long you can, it's amazing how long you can stay in business, in a cash flow business, and not make money. And then, to throw $100,000 in or something into that pile might get you another 3 or 4 years.
Here in Canada, we're seeing, because we were deemed essential service during the COVID, we really didn't see a lot of shops closing. They were still operating. So we didn't see that. Again, we had government help as well with respect to their rent and wages for their employees. And I don't see a lot of shops closing based on not paying those funds back to the government. I think that's something that those who did receive those funds and help during COVID plan on paying that back.
Yeah. Well, thank you. All right. So just in interest of time, I'm going to go to our next section, obviously the industry makeup. So majority of auto repair shops are small businesses. Obviously, we've talked about lately how more and more shops are buying other shops and becoming MSOs. But 72% of the repair shops generated less than 1 million in revenue in 2000. Interesting. 66% of the repair shops have 10 employees or less, and 60% of repair shops have less than 5 service bays. Only about 14% of shops have more than 10 service bays. So we also kind of touched on service bays going away as well. So from that, what do these revenue numbers tell us about the overall state of the industry?
Well, like what Cecil said previously about the door rate, we're not charging enough on our hourly rate, and that needs to be increased. And I think if we increase that, that's where the revenue is going to increase as well.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at it's hard to draw a conclusion. There's not enough. I don't think there's enough data here to make any, solid conclusions. But if you add to this the idea that we have 72% productivity in the industry, those shops that were doing 500,000 or 800,000 should have been doing $1 million too. That's the scary part, is that the idea that we're paying these techs for hours, but we're not getting the hours, usually not because the techs aren't qualified to do the hours, but because our systems and processes in our business or our estimating is messed up, and we're not maximizing. So when this comes, the first thing I'm like, well, yeah, but they should have done $1.5 million, right? That's where I go. It's like, oh my God, yes, of course. But if you maximized your business, you do another 500,000 and put another 250 in your bottom line. So anyway, that's my thought from this slide. We need some other information to really understand what's going on in our industry, and this lack of productivity is killing us.
Well, it used to be if you had a shop that did $1 million+ in revenue every year, that you were in the top 5 to 8% of all independent shops in the United States. And now I have more $2 million+ shops in my circle of influence than I've ever seen in my life. And it seems like probably now, if you had $1 million shop, that would that gap has increased. So you'd be in like the top 25% or more. And then you've got 15% of the shops in the United States that are doing 2 million plus. And so hopefully that's because they're doing better. But I think it's also hopefully those people they've increased their prices. They have the processes and procedures in place. Some of them are specialty shops and things like that. So
I think you're seeing a real separation too. You're seeing the guys that really know how to run their business, and I was talking to one of my shop owners yesterday. Our goal for next year is 9 million. I mean, and then you're seeing the guys that are not running their shops well, they're going to be that 15%, 18% that drop off. And that's going to be the bottom. The majority of those shops that are going to disappear are going to be the 5 service bays, or the smaller operators that just aren't hitting the targets.
So of those shooting for 9 million, what are the things that you guys are coaching to get them? Obviously rates, having a coach. So what are the things that you guys are seeing the shift in that these owners are doing that others are not?
I think they need to have more business management courses and get to productivity, like you said, with the technicians. How many hours are they getting of true productivity during the day? What's their cost, their overhead? Some of them don't even know that. It's like they don't know exactly how much is going in and going out and what they're making. Some of them are still working in the bays. They're shop owners working in the bays. They're not looking at their financials and et cetera, on a regular basis. So I think that we need to do more training on the business end of it, small businesses and how to run the business and, financials and productivity with their staff.
And
focusing on, margin, parts margin, labor margins, productivity in the business, systems and processes. The funny correlation, and Chris, you might second this, you might not. The shop owners that are doing better in my circle are the shop owners that are higher priced, that have defined the client they want and are going after that top tier client. They're not going after what we call the bottom feeder.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're the ones, putting 20, 22, 24% net in the bottom line and growing their businesses.
And like you said, they're investing in their business. They're spending the dollars to invest and put back into the business. So therefore they're more successful, I think.
Well, and at some point, so Cecil, the shop that's doing 9 million now, what were they doing when they started with you?
3 million, but we also bought a second business. So the new target, we're going to do more than 4 million this year. We've only been working with them for about 6 months. So, Nick, I switched to a different microphone. We've been working with them for about 6 months. Our target next year between the two shops is 9. We're taking one from 1 million to 3, and the other one's going from 3 million to 6.
But what that person realized at some point is I'm not going to be able to get there on my own. And that person asked you for help, right? So that's the thing, is you have shop owners that are stubborn, stuck in their ways. They think they know how to do it and they really don't. But when you ask for help from, Cecil or another coach or me or whoever, that's really the tipping point in your business to get you focused and hold you accountable for where you want to go. And I just feel like shop owners need to own that. The other thing I will tell you is the investment firms that come in, the equity money, if they don't know how to run a repair shop, they will hire a professional before they even buy a shop, like 6 months before, so that they have all the basics down and they know exactly what they're doing. I've been contacted by several. I've helped several. So, you need to surround yourself with good people in order to move your business forward.
I think it's interesting. This particular shop owner, I won't take credit for his success because he's a very successful shop owner, and I've known him for 25 years. And finally this year he was like, okay, so I'm gonna let you help me. So, but I have a slanted perspective because this is what I do. And of course I want to make a living and all of that. But the shop owners that are getting help and getting education are the shop owners that are really knocking it out of the park. I don't know. What I always tell someone is if you could have done it on your own, you would have done it on your own, right? You don't know what you don't know. You need someone that knows the things that you don't know.
Yeah.
And also you need somebody, because it's me and Cecil and we're here, somebody like us who've done it hundreds of not, 500s of times and push you through to the other side. Because at the first sign of adversity, people will be like, oh, I can't do that here because I'm special. And what I would tell you is you live in your own fishbowl. You're special in your fishbowl, but there's a whole huge world out there. And it can be done wherever you're at in your market, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because I've seen it happen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times.
And plug in. I mean, there's association. There's Diane's here from an association. There's so many resources out there to help you get your business. Whether it's coaching, streamlining processes from technology. There's so many things that are there to benefit you as a business owner to help you grow. And there are people that are in those positions and places that have been doing this. And whether they own a shop now don't own a shop now doesn't mean that they haven't had that experience at some point in their life. And so all of the coaching comes from a really good place and community. So make sure you are plugging yourself in.
That's right. We can definitely steer them in the right direction where they need to go to get that help.
There are so many resources if you don't want to hire a coach. I mean, we have hundreds of things, videos and things online that are no charge. Obviously, we want you to get introduced to us. I want to go back to that thing that Chris said. I always say I'm going to write a book and the title's going to be Cecil, You Don't Understand. Because that's like the conversation I have over and over. Well, I'm in Utah and there's a big church influence here and people are cheap, so we can't charge that or we can't do that. One of the most successful shops I have is here in Utah, and he has an $860 average repair order in a general repair shop. And they're going to do $4.5 million. When we met them, they were doing $2 million, but they were losing $200,000 a year. So, I've heard that you don't understand a million times. And in 3 cases in the 21 years I've been doing this, it was true that there was something that was not right, that couldn't be right in the shop. And very unusual, but I've literally heard it 10,000 times and only 3 times was it really true.
Love that. All right, we're going to go on to digital marketing and the benefits of digital marketing, really just marketing in general, and how important it is to your shop. So almost 64% of the repair shops, now again, this was the ones that we surveyed, the 300, spent more than $2,000 on marketing in 2021, while 85% of them reported that they spent some during that period. So about approximately 1/3 of shops surveyed spent more than $10,000 per year on marketing in 2021 alone. So nearly 60% of the shop respondents use social media as their main marketing tool, followed by 45% of the respondents using their search engine marketing to promote their business. So 29% social media and search engine. So they stated 29% were using social media and search engine marketing, 25% to run their marketing channels effectively. So before I go into like in-depth, obviously, again, this isn't the whole view of the report. We will be sending that out, but just from what you guys are seeing, as what do you normally suggest shops to spend on marketing? And are there certain times through the business when they should be doing different numbers, that type of stuff?
My shops will spend between 6 and 9% of their gross sales on marketing if they're doing it the way that I would want them to do it. And this is a scary number because we have so many shops that are doing literally no marketing, and they're worried about consistency. One of their productivity issues is consistency of business. So one week we do 30,000, the next week we do 15, and really almost because we don't have car count. To create a consistent business, you're going to have to spend some marketing money, and you need to identify the kind of client that you want and go after that one. And the other scary thing about this is SEM, SEO, and social media today, we're seeing a huge return, like an 8-to-1, even a 20-to-1 ROI on money spent. And we're seeing maybe a 1-to-1 ROI on direct mail, yet direct mail still is one of the primary marketing things that people are doing. Why would you spend your money there? I mean, there is a time to do that, but it's if I could spend my money and get an 8-to-1 ROI instead of a 1-to-1, that's where I want to spend my money. And unfortunately, the other problem is that most shop owners, they're not qualified to do this themselves, yet they're trying to do it themselves to either save money or because of ego or whatever. You need to hire a professional here, and that's going to cost something, but it's going to create and generate a huge return on investment.
Diane, do you guys what do you guys teach?
I totally agree with what Cecil's saying. Definitely, we're seeing that they are spending anywhere between 5 to 10%. However, like you said, they're shop owners. They do not specialize. They need to seek someone who's specialized in the digital marketing and go from there, and as a way to increase their revenue.
Well, or go ahead, Cecil.
You want someone that's vetted. And so you need to be talking to a coaching company that has multiple clients that are because we're testing these people out, and we know the guys in the automotive industry who do this well. So there's so much. I mean, I get 5 a day from somebody that wants to help me increase my online presence, and most of them don't have any clue. And it would be flushing my money down the toilet. You need someone that's vetted, and they need to be automotives. They need to understand automotive.
Yeah, there are a lot of people out there that work for anybody that they can get money from, but there are some in the industry that just specifically work for auto repair shops, and they're having huge returns, like Cecil said, but they specialize. Like all the AdWords they write or all the Google ads they write are just for auto repair. And if you're trying to do these things yourself, like 4 or 5 years ago, I went through the process of getting, back when it was called AdWords certified, Google AdWords certified. So I understood more about it, but I wouldn't even try that process to do it because Google, the robots change stuff on a weekly basis. And if you're not in it, working on it, looking at it every week, the algorithms get changed, and then you're chasing something over here when you should be chasing over here. Go ahead.
It's funny too, because right now video is a big deal in our industry. There's several companies pushing video, yet Google ad return on video is down 9%. And you think when their ad return is down 9%, they're not going to make a change. Google made over 400 changes last year, and they had 4 major changes to what they did and how they did it in their AI and how it interprets what you have. And if you're not on top of that, what you did a year ago will be completely ineffective next year. So I agree with Chris 100%.
Well, and Google's not doing this to make sure you get business. Google's doing this to make sure that you spend ad dollars with them. So they want your ads to get clicked on. They want your stuff to happen. And if as soon as they see, like Cecil said, a 9% drop in something, is like, oh, we gotta make sure that these videos are hit more often and everything else. Yeah, it's been an interesting ride with Google for sure.
And Google is constantly making adjustments to just recently, one of their major changes is they now have a website score. And if you score higher, you're going to return in the Google search area. The maps, it used to be maps. Now we call it the snack pack, the Google search area. And that's where 82% of people spend their money. And so, there's this whole idea that I want to set my marketing up to really take advantage of Google and what Google is doing. And sometimes shop owners are going to argue with the professionals because they think they need to do it this way when they need to listen to the person that knows how to do it to get the result.
Historically, shop owners are terrible at tracking their ads and everything else. And one of the things that I love about Google Ads is you can see that it leads to a phone call. You can listen to the phone call, and you can tell, okay, just for instance, if I'm spending $500 on ads and it's returning X amount of phone calls and that leads to X amount of appointments, well, if I double that, then we should see a double rate increase in that. And if we don't, we can coach to that or whatever. And so you can spend accordingly to what your return is. But the other thing is I have people that like, oh, I got with this company. They told me to spend $5,000 a month on Google Ads. There's a limited rate of return at some point where you're overspending, and you don't have a return on it. So you need to make sure that you talk to somebody that knows how to look that up and figure that out. The other thing I'll say is that, if you have somebody that's just randomly doing your AdWords and they're doing 50 shops in one market, like say Salt Lake City or Los Angeles or somebody, all those ads are the same and you're competing against your own ad and driving your own cost up versus being special and specific because you have somebody that's auto repair specific related.
I tell you what's worse is that they have so many websites, they're copying material and your page is not being indexed. So when Google comes, they can't even see that you do Toyotas because that's been copied so many times and they're indexing pages. So I've seen shop owners where they had a 92-page website and 82 pages were non-indexed. So Google couldn't see them. I mean, this is an area where we don't know enough as shop owners where we really need to know because this is the future of making my shop, bringing the right customers into my business. And I want to just one more thing. Sometimes we blame the digital marketing company or the marketing company that they're bringing us bad calls. And yet as a coach, I listen to phone calls and there are so many unqualified people that don't know how to handle that customer from start to finish and actually close and bring that lead in. And so that kind of training, I think, is invaluable, getting your salespeople to understand how to pick up the phone and get that person interested in bringing their car to you.
Well, that's how you go. Processes and procedures, like how do we answer the phone? I did the same thing last week, Cecil. A new client, we're looking, we're getting more traffic, getting more phone calls, and they're about to lose their mind because what they're spending on Google Ads now. And I'm like, well, I can go into that dashboard and listen. And so I spent about 7 minutes listening to about 10 phone calls and just forwarded them all to them. Like, we need to have a talk about this and you need to start coaching your staff. We've got 3 different people answering the phone 7 different ways. It's repair shop. It's whatever. It drives me nuts when I listen to that stuff.
Oh yeah. It's crazy. Go ahead, Amber.
You can't just throw money at marketing and think it's going to work, right? So you have to be willing to do the work that comes along with it. It's good to have partners that will do the basis, manage the data, all of those things. But just like they're alluding to, it's still coaching. You still have to pick up the phone. You still have to bring that sale over. So just because you throw money at it, to see that return on your investment, you still have to do work to make that return. So.
And when you think about, again, you have a shop owner that's trying to fix cars, trying to write service, answer the phones, chase parts, whatever. It's not a 1960s business anymore. It's a 2020s business, and it has to be run differently.
Yep. All right, we're going to move on. So labor rate, we've already talked about this. I already know your reaction on this. I am going to have you guys weigh in on it a little bit more. So like you mentioned earlier, the average standard labor rate was $120 per hour. I'm going to let you guys, let's just start right there. So we've given a little bit of the reactions, but go ahead. Would love to just.
My answer is,
Yeah.
AutoLeap did a webinar recently where we talked about labor rates. Every shop owner should watch it. Every service advisor, every manager, because right now we are at least $100 an hour less expensive than we should be in comparison to other professional trades. And it's killing us. We're not interesting. We're not keeping new technicians in our business. We're not attracting new people in our business because we don't pay enough, and we're not profitable enough, etc. labor rates have to increase in our industry, and they are going to, or you are not going to be in business. End of sentence.
Well, and the thing that cracks me up is we're like, okay, so hire a plumber. There's no new technology in plumbing that I know of in the last several years. There's no new technology in electricity. And we're dealing with electric vehicles and hybrid vehicles. And I saw in Australia where they put to market the first hydrogen vehicle yesterday. So, which is, don't get me started on that. Like, I'm all for hydrogen versus electric, but we won't get into that here. But yeah. And so, and again, I think I've said this, and I might have said it to you before too, Cecil. I think our industry has a self-esteem problem. Like, I don't think we value ourselves enough to be able to charge that much, because we see ourselves, or some shop owners see themselves as just mechanics or just technicians. And when you say that about yourself, gosh, it makes me feel sad.
There's so much work to be done here on our own self-esteem and our value of ourselves as an industry, as an individual within the industry, and what we contribute. And my plumber charges me $250 an hour easy. My electrician's probably close to $300, and they don't have the tools or the knowledge level that I need to work on today's cars. It's insane that we're not $250 an hour average right now. Today.
And if you looked at that bill, you probably got charged $250 an hour for a journeyman plumber, and then got charged another $130 an hour for an apprentice. And the apprentice is the one that did all the work. He's the one underneath the house and everything else. And the journeyman is just sitting there watching, training, and mentoring him. And everybody's okay with that. And we can't, get enough for one person, let alone 2 or 3 people in our shops.
Yeah, even my accountant is like $400 an hour, $450, and they charge me $175 when their junior person does some of the work. I mean, and it's amazing to me that we're where we are. We just don't get it as an industry. We're so afraid of the guy down the street that's charging $90 an hour, and that guy is putting himself out of business. Why are we following that guy? I was talking to a guy the other day, and I said, what's the local dealership? Which is not my normal call, but this guy's at like 135 and he wants to be less than the local dealership. So I said, do you know what the local dealership? He says, yeah, the Toyota dealership's 215. I said, why aren't you 210? If you want to be less, why are you $80 less? Why aren't you $5 less or $10 less?
This has been a problem for many years. That you're right. Our shop owners just don't see themselves, as professionals within our industry yet. We're the ones who do the most training, the tools, the equipment that's spent just to run a shop. And yet we're afraid to push the envelope. And we just did a survey to see what the dealerships are paying their technicians versus what the independents are paying technicians. And we're very close, but if we need to attract more qualified, skilled people in our industry, I think we need to pay more. And if we need to pay more, we definitely need to put the labor rate up.
So somebody in the chat said, how do we reset it?
I love that question.
And so the question is just do it, for crying out loud. Stop thinking about it and just do it.
One shop at a time. I mean, we're working with a lot of shops, and we walk in the door. I did this last week with a guy, and I said, you need to raise your labor rate $20 an hour, when he really needs to go up 70, but we're going to start with 20. And then 2 weeks later, have a conversation with him and said, how many people said no? Well, nobody.
Zero.
Nobody said no. And then you're also, when you decide what kind of client you want to work with, if you don't want to work with bottom feeders, you have to be a higher labor rate. Send the bottom feeders to the guy down the street that's cheaper. That's where they need to go. It's crazy.
The data right here, your $20. I mean, look at the breakdown at the bottom, from $1 million to under $1 million. It's right there. And it shows you. And these people have taken that. They've made the decision, they made the change, and they went with it. And obviously they're growing. And you are a special trade, and you need to understand your value.
The other thing in there that says have increased their labor rate in the past 2 years, which means they changed it once 2 years ago and haven't changed it since. And I don't know. We just recently did to it because I may have even heard it from Cecil, but we're doing like quarterly evaluations and changing our labor rates every quarter now. And to the, sometimes you get a shop owner to agree to raise their labor rate and it's like, oof, okay, I'll do $2. And I'm like, okay, we need to go up more than that. And they're like, okay, well, I'll do it $2 now. And then in like 6 months, I'll do it another $2. Like nobody's ever known. And I've actually done a $60 labor rate increase because a shop owner called me. I looked at it and I was like, you're going to go out of business if you don't do something soon. And that's how far off his labor rate was from where he needed it. It's not a number that we pulled from the sky. It's a labor rate analysis that we did. And he's like, I'm afraid I'm going to go out of business. And I was like, well, you're going to go out of business if you don't do it. So let's try it and see. And he did it and everything was fine.
Again, John is saying, how do we reset the industry? We are working together, guys like Chris and myself, Camp Coalition of Automotive Management Professionals. We are going to be talking about an industry increase as an industry to do several things. And it's about marketing. It's about each person really understanding their cost and moving their business where it needs to be realistically. I would tell you my average client is probably around 180 an hour. And I have some people that are over 200 and I have some shops that are newer shops with us that are down around 130, 140. And, we're moving it up as much as we can, as fast as we can, because the resistance is from the shop owner. And because we're always going to have guys in our industry because of the low cost of entry that are going to charge less. There's always going to be that guy down the street that'll work out of his house or work out of his garage. That's unless we get together and we have our own association like the bar association or something that starts to set this is the standards for our industry.
Hey, Cecil, to kind of go to what you were just saying, we had a question. How frequently do you recommend to raise rates? And is there a percent formula, like 3% a quarter? Chris, you were kind of weighing in on this too. So
I think that in the minimum we go 3% a year, and that 3% is the price of inflation over 75 years. 3% a year average. Right now, we probably should have in the last 2 years we probably should have raised our labor rate at least 5 or 6 times. I like the quarterly rate, increase the quarterly. Take a look. When someone comes to me and says I'm going to go $2 and they need to go 12, I'm like, okay. So you're going to lose $6,000 a month for the next 6 months. That's $36,000 because you don't have the, stones to raise your rate. And the problem is the pain is in your head. It's not in the customer's head. They don't know what it should be. Most customers don't know what it should be, and they're not really price shopping you against the other guy as a one-to-one comparison. Very small portion of the population are cheap because they're born cheap. Most people are looking for a 7 to 15 different things, and price is one of those, right? And so if you raise your labor rate $2 an hour, there's no difference if you raise your labor rate $6 an hour. The pain is in your head, not the customer's head. And average hours on a car, 1.2 hours. By the way, that's been the same for a long time, and it shouldn't be. It should be 3. But if you raise your labor rate $6 an hour, 1.2 hours, the average customer is going to pay what, $8, $9 more, and nobody's going to say no for $9. They just don't say it. So, yeah.
I'm going to equate, and we're going to go to the next, but that pain is equated to fear. Just get over it. Just do it. If you don't get over your fear, it's not going to happen. 99% of our fears do not come true. So just do it. Sorry.
And while she flips slides, I will say same thing here, Cecil. I don't have anybody less than 149, and I've got more $200 shops now than ever. And it's across the country. It's not like most of the time when I say that, that's like, oh, that's California. I'm like, no, I've got $200 an hour shops in Dallas, Denver, Florida, all across the big thing is they know what their worth is. They have value for their business and they're willing to charge for it anyway.
And their customers are willing to pay it because they're getting, if your price is too high and people are leaving you, it's not about your price. It's about your service. It's always about what you give to your customer.
Yep. I love it.
I agree.
Yeah. Let me see if we have one more question. Let me see if it's relatable to that. What is the average productivity of the $150 to $200 an hour shop?
My guys are, go ahead, Chris.
I didn't hear the question. Go ahead.
Sorry, what is the average productivity of the $150 to $200 an hour shop?
If it's a coach shop and you're in there, we're shooting for 90% or better all the time. So it better be close to 90% or better. Or at least that's the goal.
You have to be careful here because different definitions of productivity and efficiency. And so you could be talking about one thing and someone else is thinking something else.
Right.
If I have a tech that's working 8 hours a day, I'm expecting 9.6 hours worth of production from that tech per day, because most shops that I'm working with have at least a 20% multiplier on their labor times to make up for time that they spend cleaning the bay, cleaning the tools, test driving, paperwork, etc. So what we do is we look for a minimum of 100% productivity, 8 hours for 8 hours. And then we work on systems and process and how we do things. And as I told one of my clients this morning, you'll make more money with this tool right here than any tool you have in your toolbox. So it's about that also.
Yeah. I think this is pretty self-explanatory. I think we've also discussed, how there is a positive growth on the flip side of shops starting to make more money and seeing things go. I think so 60% of respondents expect to see growth in 2022. Obviously, we're like approaching the end of 2022. So when this was done, it was at the beginning of the year. Only 8% expect a decline in revenue and 34% expect similar numbers. So thoughts on favorable outlooks?
I think I'm confused on the 34 and the 8%. Like, who are those people and what the heck is going on in their mind? These are the same people that aren't changing the labor rates, right? Like how can you have been around in the industry for the last 18 months and been like, I guess this would be an Eeyore. I'd be like, oh my gosh, everything's so bad. We can't make any money. I'm just flabbergasted by that. Go ahead.
Yeah, it completely blows me away that there's no better time to be in the automotive
than right now.
Service center than right now. There's no better time. So that
you would
that
think they'd all want growth, right?
Yeah. And if you think you're going to go down, or you think you're going to decline, or you're going to stay the same, why would you do that? I mean, why not get help? Even if it's go online and join an association, or go online and find training from guys like myself and Chris. That's free. You don't have to pay us. It's out there. I mean, oh my God, how do you work year after year in a business that does it is what it is. You can't make money in the automotive industry.
Same old.
Yeah.
Expect the same.
That's called insanity. So
if you can't make money in the automotive industry, get out, because you're making it difficult for the rest of us, right?
Right.
Holy smokes. Go sell women's shoes or I don't know, groceries or something, do something else.
Well, it makes me wonder, I don't know, and it said 12% of respondents had an unfavorable outlook. Like to me, those are the people that got the money and are just coasting for 3 or 5 years, not making any money. Just like, okay, I don't know. It just boggles the mind, honestly.
If you can't raise your labor rate today, based on what's happened and the inflation and the price of everything else going up, you'll never raise your labor rate. Get out of business. Stop. It's insanity.
Well, and Cecil posited some stuff. We've talked about it in camp. I think he did a thing with Carm on it. I did a podcast on it because I thought it was awesome. Everybody in the country needs to raise their labor rate $20 an hour. And we don't have to go into it too deep here. If Cecil wants to talk about it a little bit more, he can. But a certain percentage of that should go to the current technicians and who you're recruiting. A certain percentage should go for advertising. I think it's one of the better ideas I've heard in a long time. Yeah.
So actually, one thing I've written is actually really good. I finally did it at the end of, towards the end of my career. I got 5 or 6 years left. So, but it goes into your next slide, Amber. Our biggest challenge today is with technicians. There are not enough qualified people in our industry, both service advisors and technicians. And the reason why is because you cannot make enough money. We're starting guys out at $15, $18 an hour. I can go to work at McDonald's and make 20 in Ogden, Utah. I mean, why would I buy tools? Why would I get my, hurt my ankles and my hands and my knuckles and all of that in this industry? We need a major kick in the butt here. And so I want half of that $20 an hour to go straight to techs. Every tech just gets a $10 raise. And so now we have people coming into our industry making $60,000, $70,000 to start while they're training, and we can afford it because of this increase. And we also have technicians that can make $140,000, $150,000 because they're really good at what they do. And that's where we need to be to attract people, make this interesting to new people coming in. We cannot keep hiring people at $15 an hour and making them sweep our floors who want to be technicians, because we're chasing them away. And the more people you chase away, the less people there are for the industry, period.
Yeah. Well, you're doing it, we're not investing in your business.
I agree. I agree. We need to attract the youth into our industry. I just attended a career day event yesterday with young students from the high schools, and they were surprised at how much, what you can make in the automotive industry. And we really need to raise that. Like you said, we need to raise that rate so that when they come into the industry, they are making the 60,000, 70,000, and it grows from there. But also because we're seeing more and more like signing bonuses. There's such a shortage that if you come work for us, here's a $5,000, $10,000 signing bonus. And, the independents, the small shops, we can't afford to, say, oh, here's a signing bonus of $10,000, come work for me. But if we want to attract the qualified, skilled labor, we need to pay more.
There's a proper way to do that, by the way. It's an advance on pay, not a bonus. And so that way it still has some teeth, and I don't lose it if the guy goes away. And you can afford a $10,000 advance on pay if you are charging correctly and running a business that does, that is productive and has margin. And so as an industry, we have to take this up 3 notches, or we're going to lose a lot of shops, and it's going to hurt all of us in the long run.
Well, unfortunately, we have shop owners that don't put much thought into their pay plans and everything else, and they're so starved for technicians that they're willing to do like insane amount of guarantees and everything else with no real rule or platform or anything else in place. And I think we're going to see a lot of those technicians bounce back, because those shops are going to go out of business because they're guaranteeing a guy $1,800 a week, and there's no guidance or process or procedure for it. It's just kind of crazy.
I would agree. I would agree with you. I think we're going to see some of these guys disappear because they've got this 72% productivity, and they think that, okay, I'm going to pay this guy $60 an hour, $50 an hour, so I can get this good guy, but then he's not going to produce. So my cost. I had somebody ask me the other day, what's the number one thing that you would tell shop owners that's wrong? And I would say number one is they don't understand the cost of doing business, their cost. And so they've increased their costs because they've gone crazy with techs. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't pay $1,800 a week to a guy, but it would have to be because I had good systems and process and productivity in my shop, and my rate was right.
Well, that's going to lead me into the end of that, right? So obviously we've talked about some things that they can do from a business standpoint. And now things are moving away from pen and paper, which surprisingly, there's a lot of shops that are still using pen and paper. So talking about keeping track of your numbers in your business, there's so much room for human error there.
You can't run an automotive business in pen and paper anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot, and you need a shop management software, you need a point of sale, and you need to understand the key numbers. And this is one of the best ways to make sure that you understand the numbers. And then, of course, I would tell you, you need some kind of coaching or training to help you understand what the numbers mean for your business and what you need to change to improve those numbers in your business and how to do it.
And I still run across a lot of people that use QuickBooks as their point of sale system, which to me, that's just as bad as pen and paper. If I don't know how you can go through a presentation on a shop management software and not understand how it's going to make you more money in just shop supplies, parts matrix, and things like that to pay for itself. Not including like a DVI, and you put the process and procedure for that in place. And I will say too that like these $3 million, $4 million, $9 million, even $1 million shops that we're talking about, they can probably access their income statement within 24 hours. It drives me nuts when I ask somebody, "Hey, I need an income statement," and they're like, "Well, I got the one from 2 years ago. The accountant's finished with that one, but we're not quite done with last year's, and I'm not even close to having anything for this year yet."
And Chris, how many profit and loss statements have you looked at that just were completely inaccurate? They didn't even,
all of them.
They were, yeah. I mean, I've seen 3 in my entire life that were actually done right. And I met a guy in March at a show, became a client, no point of sale, no DVI, made $56,000 last year. We just talked to his accountant. We're going to make $250,000 this year because we put those things in place. And my first conversation with him was, I can't help you very well if you don't at least have a point of sale. And then we went to, we're going to spend $1,000 a month on marketing. And it's like, I know the shop owners out there going, man, $1,000 a month, where's that coming from? But you should have that because you're running your business correctly, pricing correctly, it's productive, etc. It's funny. It's just funny to me that you take these businesses where we're $400 a month, which I don't know exactly what AutoLeap costs, but somewhere between $400 and $600 a month for the average point of sale if it's just a normal thing. And they're like, I don't think I can afford that. And then you put it in place, you make a couple of minor adjustments, and you're making an extra $3,000. It's Amber. I got to tell you, it's absolutely necessary. And I have a lot of clients that have AutoLeap now. Thank you.
I appreciate that. And we're good. And here's the reality, and I'm going to do a selfless plug here. AutoLeap is all in one. So all of those things that we talk about, the marketing, the customer communication, all of those things are within AutoLeap. There's no tier pricing. But there are other shop management softwares out there. One of the questions that I do want to say, what features do you look for in a shop management software? So I think it comes down to your shop needs, what you're looking to do, the money, and then Cecil, I think you were going to respond.
Yeah, as a coach and a consultant, for me, the reports and getting good numbers, you can't manage what you don't measure, is really important. That's my most. But I think for most shops, it's ease of use, ease of transition. Can I use this? Does it make sense for my business? To will we be the adoptability of it into the shop? And we recommend AutoLeap's one of the software systems because it's very adoptable in the shop, and we get great numbers out of it. And those are the things that are kind of, to me, most important.
Well, and going back for just a minute, all of this money is in your business. It's there, whether you know it or not. You just have to get it out. Like any shop can go from, when I say any shop, any shop can go from $500,000 a year to $1 million to $2 million a year. Like, it's there. You just have to get in there and dig it out. And if you're thinking about tools and what to do, you're never going to be able to dig it out if you don't have a shop management system. Like, you're just never going to get there. Now, if you have paper and you tear a bunch of them up at night, you might be able to hide a bunch of money from Uncle Sam. That might be something. But whenever you go to sell the business, you're not going to get anywhere because you're going to show that you lost money every year.
My dad had, back in the day, 2 sets of books was not uncommon. My dad probably took 15 grand out of his business in cash every year. And frankly, so that he didn't pay quote unquote taxes. And because of the way he did that, he put himself at risk. He could have went to prison at any time and lost everything, which isn't worth it. He stole 15 grand a year from himself, where if he was running his business correctly, he could have took 5 times that out of his company, legitimately, and paid taxes.
I'll never forget my granny. Rest her soul, had a great restaurant, a very successful restaurant. And I remember being young, like I started working for her at 5 years old, doing dishes and bussing tables. But one day I was sitting there watching her, and she had these 2 books out, and I go, what are you doing, Granny? I don't understand. Why are you doing this twice? And she looked at me and she winked, and this is in the late 70s, early 80s. She had her big hair, and she winked at me and smiled. And she goes, "One's for me and one's for the IRS." And that's exactly what she said. Yeah.
You can't do that today. I mean, first of all,
No.
the IRS knows everything.
Right.
I got audited about 5 years ago, and they knew about things that they shouldn't have known about.
Right.
And today they know more. You cannot. There's going to come a point where the IRS is going to step into the automotive industry and start taking a serious look at these businesses, and a bunch of guys are going to go to jail or be fined and not have a nickel left of anything. It isn't worth it. Run your business right, earn the money that you deserve, and pay taxes. And that's how it ought to be.
I can't see any shop today not having a proper soft management software. And we promote AutoLeap as well. And you're right. I just can't see them running a business without the proper software.
I don't think it's possible today, frankly. And one of the first things, it's scary because people come to me to be coached, and it's not expensive. In my opinion, it's not even because the ROI is huge, but they're going to pay me. And then I'm like, oh, you don't have a management. Well, we got to get a management software in place first thing. And then I want a DVI in place. And by the way, I want a marketing plan, and I want consistent SEO, SEM. That's how we improve. That's how we take the business from 500,000 to $1 million and put 200,000 in your pocket. That's how it's done. So yeah, can't do without it today.
You have to have your numbers, right?
Yeah.
If you don't know where you are, how can you increase, right?
And I think you also you need the training so that you understand what the numbers mean and what you have to do back here to fix the number up here.
Yeah. Well, guys, I would love to continue this conversation. I really would. But everybody who is on this call will be at Vegas at SEMO or APEX. So I will send the recording afterwards with the slides, along with the full report that we discussed in detail. With that, I will also include all 3 of our experts today's contact information, if you are okay with it. I always say that, and I should ask before I say that. But I will give you their contact information, and we hope that you guys found this valuable. AutoLeap does plan to continue to do this as a benchmark report in the industry. So obviously, the more and more survey or shop owners that we can survey, the better the data. I appreciate all 3 of your time. As always, we truly appreciate you. We appreciate everything that all of you do in the industry to help business owners continue to grow their businesses, to understand how to run a business, and really just to further progress the industry and evolve it. So I cannot thank you guys enough. Everyone else is saying thank you for your time. So I look forward to seeing you guys, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.